Okay. So, like Nick said, my name is Autumn. I'm a descendant of the Cedar Band of Paiutes from the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah. And this is a long time coming project that I've been working on. So this is my baby, and this is a little bit of the information that I collected. So we can go ahead and change the slide. There I am, out with my telescope, and this is me pointing up at the crescent moon. So as it was mentioned, I am a current anthropology major, psychology minor at Southern Utah University. I work as a seasonal interpretive ranger at Pipe Spring National Monument. So this year, I am going to be spearheading the Dark Sky program for Pipe Spring National Monument. I am going to be their Dark Sky Ranger, so the first one in the history of Pipe Spring. Like I mentioned, I'm a descendant of the Cedar Band of Paiutes, and I did gain my passion of the sky through my native heritage from my grandmother. So this is something that is very, very special to our culture. So you guys should feel really privileged to be able to be here and listen to this information, because some of this information that we're going to learn about tonight has not been talked about in a really, really long time. So this is a revival of information. We can change the slide. So disclaimer, before we start anything, not all information of the night sky will be shared. Some traditional knowledge must be kept for only the Southern Paiute people or nation. This is because by protecting our information, it helps us protect our cultural heritage. Some information is just strictly for us Southern Paiute people so that we can protect it, we can preserve it, we can pass it down to future generations to learn. So if you ask me a question when we get to the end, and if I tell you that I can't answer the question, don't take any offense to it. It's just simply because I was taught by my elders and my grandma, you got to keep something for us Native people, because we've had a lot taken away from us. So slide. Oh, wait, before we go to the next slide, let me mention this, because this is really important. I don't know if we have any other rangers here from any of the other public lands divisions, or even other organizations that talk about Southern Paiute star stories. It is very important to remember that when discussing these stories, we have a certain time of year that we are able to recite them, and that is in the winter season. So obviously, we're no longer in winter, so we're not going to be telling any full stories tonight. And we just kindly ask that when you guys go back to your divisions that you work in, that you keep this in mind as you're creating programs. And the best method would be reach out to us Southern Paiute people. We are the best people to talk about our own history, our own cultural views, and it brings a little bit more connection to these public lands or these ancestral homelands where our ancestors are from. Slide. So Native people as astronomers. A lot of people, when they look at our culture and they look at Native American people, they do not view us as scientists, but I totally disagree with that. So since the beginning of Native people's existence upon North America, we have been scientists. This includes astronomy work, botany work, hydrology, architecture, and many other fields. So it was through our traditional knowledge and teachings that we achieved the ability to be scientists before Euro-Americans came to this continent. So we were already constructing stuff. We was already mapping the sky. So this is not something that is new. Our scientific views are critical for teaching our children that we have a place in fields related to science. And that was one of the other big reasons that I took on this program, is because we need more Native American people working in scientific fields. We need more Native American women working in STEM-related jobs. It's very important as minority people that we make our presence known and prove that we can keep up with everyone else. So slide. So interpretation of the solar system from a Native American mindset. I'm going to move to the other side so I can see better. So being able to view and translate the sky through two different mindsets. This means that as I was translating this information with the help of my intern, we had to look at this in two different ways. We had to look at the information from a cultural perspective and from our traditional background, But we also had to look at it in a scientific way, so that when we are able to present information like this to like the public, like you guys, we can be able to mesh those two ideas together so that everybody can have an appreciation for this really neat information. So the interpretation of the solar system also helps with the traditional knowledge of our stories. If you know our stories, it is easier for us to translate what we see in the sky. And the importance of cultural connection to all creations of the universe. With the understanding of the solar system, this helps us have a place within this little teeny rock that we're all spinning on throughout the universe. And then understanding that you are a part of a whole circle that continues to move in energy. Understanding the sky as a Native American person helps us understand that system that we're a part of. But most importantly, it establishes a connection to our ancestors as contemporary Native American people. So understanding what our ancestors were looking at and how they were living their lives helps us to interpret ourselves as more culturally aware contemporary Native American people. Slide. So the revitalization of Southern Paiute astronomy. How did the research begin? So here in the photo, there's me, and then this is our dark sky tribal intern, Mary Hill. We actually grew some of this stuff at the Native Garden at Pipe Spring National Monument according to traditional agricultural planting methods that are connected to the cycle of the moon. So the collection of Southern Paiute astronomy began with a program provided in cooperation with Pipe Spring National Monument, the Zion Forever Project, and the Cedar Band of Paiute Indians. So if it was not for these three organizations, this program would not have taken off. And so each of them supported us in a very special way. So the main idea was to collect star information that is important to the preservation of cultural knowledge for current and future generations of the Southern Paiute Nation. So again, that's a big emphasis of why this research was collected. We wanted to give it to the younger generations so that they could carry this talent on through life with them. Collected information could also help create a Southern Paiute star chart or a new Wu solar system as seen through our ancestors' eyes. So instead of looking up, and seeing the regular sky like everybody sees, we were able to interpret as new Wu solar system. So a lot of the other tribes in North America have already done this, like the Dene people, Hopi people. They have images of their solar system. We are now establishing that as Southern Paiute people. So hopefully, maybe within the next year, we'll be able to actually create an image, like a star chart of a complete Southern Paiute solar system. Slide. So the methodology of research collected in the past. So in the past, when we were digging through this information, we of course had to go through a lot of archives. And how we found that most information was collected pre-1950s was in the manner of ethnography work. So lots of oral history interviews, and engagement in tangible experiences to translate into cultural understanding. This was mainly done with work between anthropologists and archaeologists. But this did kind of provide or create a hurdle for us as we were translating the information. The problem with it is that the past work was translated from a Euro-American mindset and times shifted the views to fit American society. So even some of our traditional stories that were recorded, the meaning was taken out of them, and it was made to fit even almost like a Victorian era mindset, very conservative, very closed in, but it wasn't open like we were hoping it to be. But the information was still good. Slide. So literature used for reference. Like I mentioned, we're digging through a lot of archives. We're looking through a lot of interviews. And Why the North Star Stands Still by William Palmer serves as one of the only published books with a Southern Paiute star story. So this is the new picture on the republished book of Why the North Star Stands Still. And William Palmer, he was actually a descendant of the Mormon pioneers. He worked very closely with the Southern Paiute people. But as he's working with them and recording information, he's shifting it and he's changing it. And he's also recording Southern Paiute words from our language and misspelling them. And so there you're getting a lot of jumbled information. Contributions to this book actually came from my great-grandmother, Clara Zuniga, and my uncle, my great-uncle, Isaac Hunkup. They actually contributed some of the star information to William Palmer, so it's kind of in my genes to do this. So other literature used for reference, Anthropology of the Numa. So Anthropology of the Numa is one of my most favorite documents to look at. It is some of the collected works of John Wesley Powell when he arrived here on the Colorado Plateau and was working with the Southern Paiute people. Really, really good. You can actually download it for free on lots of educational websites. And then, of course, your anthropological ethnographic field notes from anthropologist Isabel Kelly. So she worked with the Southern Paiute people in between the 1920s and 30s. Lots of the star information that Isabel Kelly actually collected is mainly connected to the Nevada bands, so Moapa, Las Vegas Paiutes. This is mainly who she's working with. So as we were going through this literature, one of the other things that we discovered is that between the bands in our nation, everybody kind of had like their own twist on the stars and the names of them and the stories of them. So it was really cool to see the different viewpoints from the bands in their different areas. Slide. So why is the cultural connection of the sky important to the Southern Paiute people? So like many cultures across the globe, the idea of being connected to something larger on a universal level is a part of being culturally aware of who we are as Southern Paiute people. The interpretation of the sky encourages the development of songs, dances, ceremonies, and life skills such as agriculture. So this is something that I really like to talk about, because you have lots of anthropologists and archaeologists that arrive to this territory to study the Southern Paiute people. And they're continually putting on the label that we are strictly a hunter-gatherer society, that we was not sedentary, that we did not connect to agriculture, and I completely disagree with that. And that is because of the information that we found connected to the sky and planting methods. So we did plant gardens, we did have irrigation systems, and of course our ancestors were really good at locating springs in the desert. So the sky also serves a purpose for one of the most sacred parts of our life cycle as Paiute people. It is the map to our path to the spirit world. So, and this is of course when we pass away. These views can be a crucial connection to the history of Coyote and his children, as well as the path of the spirit world. So the Milky Way and Pleiades, they serve a purpose for us when we leave this shell here, when our spirit moves on. So that is another reason why some of the information that we did discover, I will not share it publicly, because that is sacred information for us to know. Slide. So how does the night sky influence the life of Southern Paiutes? So here in this photo, if you guys can see it, this is a John Hillers photo. John Hillers was John Wesley Powell's photographer on his expedition. And so he had taken this photo here of the Kaibab Paiute people circle dancing. So circle dance songs, they actually have a connection, some of them, to the full moon. Some of the songs have a connection to certain stars. So circle dances, we also discovered, sometimes would be held during a full moon, eclipses. Some nights, I believe it was the moon, I went out and watched it in February. Sometimes you have that faint circle around the moon. That would be a time to know for our ancestors to begin their circle dance ceremony. And it also tells us that the snow is still coming. The moon still has water in her with that circle. She's going to drop a little bit more snow before the spring arrives. So prayers related to daily life, such as rising in the morning to greet the morning star, or Venus, and the sun. Ceremonies such as the sun dance and the cry ceremony also have relation to Venus and signifies the start of these ceremonies. So basically, like with the sun dance, this is something that was taught to me by my grandmother. When the sun dance, or when the Venus rises, so evening star, depends on which tribe. Some follow the morning star. They are able to start their ceremony then. Dancers are able to go into the corral. So that is also what tells them when to end the ceremony. And then the horizon line. So when the sun is setting, you have this dark kind of red line. That is also a connection to us culturally. It holds the path to the spirit world. So when we pass away, this is actually a path that we follow through that horizon. And the stars are homes for some of the influential spirits of the Southern Paiute world. So like Coyote and his children. Coyote serves a purpose within our culture because he helps us interpret our traditional stories, but he also has a connection to our emergent stories. Good. So constellations in the Paiute universe. I just put a few constellations in because we found a lot of them. I kind of tried to pick what is still visible right now. So constellations within the Southern Paiute world are related to traditional stories that help the development of the perception of the earth from a Southern Paiute's personal perspective. So maybe one way that I see the sky and I'm connecting to it, maybe another Southern Paiute person is going to connect to it in a different way. Just like how when all of us look at the sky, we have these really special memories that connect us to this beautiful atmosphere or environment. So the constellations are also related to winter stories and are traditionally not told out of the winter season, as I had mentioned earlier in the disclaimer. And constellations can be discussed out of the winter season, but the story connected to that constellation must only be told in the winter. I cannot stress that enough. If you find one of our star stories, please don't tell it out of the season. Slide. So the first star, the North Star or Polaris, the bighorn sheep, that is how we as Southern Paiute people view the North Star. So Polaris is in the constellation of Ursa Minor. So it is in the Little Dipper. It's right at the end of the handle there. And it is known in the Paiute universe, like I said, the bighorn sheep, who climbed too high and became stuck in the sky. Creator then placed him as the North Star to guide travelers. So the bighorn sheep holds a very special connection to us Southern Paiute people. His spirit is very strong, and we really revere him a lot. He's also kind of like the buffalo, how some of the Plains tribes view the buffalo. Slide. So Orion, the hunter. This is actually one of my favorite constellations. Orion is viewed as a hunter with a bow stretched out facing towards his prey. So according to the Greeks, when they saw Orion, they saw him facing Taurus, the bull. Southern Paiute people, we see an antelope. We see a great antelope in the sky. And so I thought it was really interesting that worlds and oceans apart, the Greek people are seeing a horned animal, and our ancestors are seeing a horned animal still through that connection. And Orion also, he signifies the start of winter. So when he rises in November, when our ancestors would see this in the past, they would know winter is coming very quickly. We need to prepare. So Taurus, the bull, the antelope. So Taurus in the Paiute universe is viewed as a great antelope being hunted by Orion. And this great antelope holds the constellation, the Pleiades cluster. This is one of our most sacred constellations, Pleiades. So this cluster is a highly revered constellation in the Southern Paiute solar system, and it sets along in Taurus. You can still kind of see Pleiades this time of year. Usually it's kind of viewable in this area. So I encourage you tonight as the sun sets, maybe about after 9 p.m., you should be able to start to see it twinkle just a little bit. I don't know, we might have a lot of clouds. So Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. In Southern Paiute, this is Soni. This is the rabbit nest. This is the den. This is the home. This is something that holds you very, very close. So the Pleiades constellation is home to Coyote's children. And when Coyote cries to the sky, he is facing the constellation Pleiades. He is crying because he has no longer a connection there with his children. There's a story of what had happened, and if it was wintertime, I'd tell you. But yes, when he bays at the sky, that is what he's crying for. But this constellation is also home to Coyote's most beautiful daughter. And she is the brightest star, Alcyone. She is the helping guide for those that have passed on to reach the spirit world. So it is here in Pleiades where Coyote's daughter, once we get to where we need to be and cross that Milky Way, she holds our spirit there until after a ceremony happens, we're able to be released from there and move on to the spirit world. So the moon, the old woman, the moon is connected to women in our cycles. The moon is very, very important to women. She helps us stay in sync. She listens to our prayers, and she gives energy. Even if you walk out on a full moon night, you'll read even articles today that people talk about getting a lot of energy or feeling like really lovey-dovey, or, you know, the moon really, really puts off this awesome energy. She is the wife to the sun. So the sun's name is Tava, and it is connected to many facets of Paiute life: songs, dances, ceremonies, and agriculture. What we did discover with the moon is that the moon actually helps break up the seasons, and it also signifies times of like planting, like I said, women's cycles. So I'm going to guarantee that if we keep digging, we probably will find a lot more about the moon. The various bands all kind of have a variation on the traditional name of the moon. Slide. So thanks and appreciation. I want to thank Pipe Spring National Monument for offering this opportunity for research to grow. We also want to thank the Cedar Band of Paiute Indians, of course, to all of the Southern Paiute Nation, all of the elders, all of us that had helped and pitched in when me and Mary were going out asking questions, researching, and a very, very special thanks to Ranger Ben Pickavit. He's not here. Makes me get teared up. So he is, he's one of our tribal elders, and he holds a lot of knowledge for us, and so he's a really special person. So we have the Zion Forever Project, and we also have my family, of course. Thanks to them, my significant other. I couldn't do it without him. He's my constant leaning post for me to, you know, cry, laugh, get angry with. So, yep, next slide. References. Lots of the images of the constellations came from earthsky.org. Pipe Spring National Monument provided the image of the John Hiller's photo, and the Why the North Star Stands Still front cover of Dr. William Palmer. We thank them for that.